Many of you know I've been covering the story of Andrew Brown Jr., who was killed by law enforcement. We've been waiting for this footage to come out. I would like to share that footage with you now if you're able to watch it. If you want to know the facts of this case, stick around. I don't want to watch it. I don't think anybody wants to watch it. I watched this video several times. I don't know if you could detect it yourself. It appears to me that Mr. Brown was just trying to back up and get away. I didn't see him doing any sweeping motions. In fact, the one officer that stood directly in front of his vehicle, I saw Mr. Brown Jr. turn his wheel to avoid him and drive away. So it's very clear to me that the district attorney doesn't really want to pursue a case here, because most of the shots, and definitely the kill shot, came from officers shooting into the back window of the vehicle. So how in danger were you when you shot a man who once again was running away? We talk about this all the time, and it seems like it doesn't permeate the brain of many of these people that support these cops. When people are running from you, they're no longer a threat to you. You can't say a person is putting their life in jeopardy if you jump in front of his car. He swerves to avoid hitting you, and then you still send almost 20 shots into the rear of his vehicle. No shots were fired from the vehicle out towards the officers. So what was so life-threatening about this situation that warranted these numbers of shots? Not to mention a shot to the back of the head. If someone breaks into your home today, tonight, or anytime, and you shoot them as they're leaving, you go to jail. That's you. That's me. That's anybody. If someone breaks into your home and they make it out the front door and you shoot them because they're leaving your home, they're no longer a threat. But what happened? You would go to jail. That's what would happen. But since they're cops, they could say, oh, we were afraid. Everything that police officers do is excused by some flimsy excuse.
Deputy Lunsford's left arm was squarely on the hood. Deputy Lunsford took evasive action to get out of the way of the front left tire of Brown's vehicle, and law enforcement commands became more heated with profanities shouted for Brown to stop the car. Brown ignored the officer's commands and backed his car until he was blocked by the rear of his residence. Continue. Continue. Right there. Brown then put the car in drive and turned the steering wheel left directly at law enforcement officers who had now surrounded his vehicle. Despite this tense situation and the aggressive driving by Mr. Brown, no law enforcement officer fired a shot. As Brown's car starts forward, Deputy Lunsford was now positioned directly in front of the vehicle, and all officers were shouting commands to stop. Brown ignored the commands and drove directly at Deputy Lunsford. Deputy Lunsford used his left hand to push off of the hood. It was at this moment that the first shot is fired.
You can see clearly now what I'm saying. Look at the right tire the right tire of the vehicle as it is as it's pointed at the officer. Look at the tire. What is this tire doing as Mr. Brown Jr. is driving his vehicle? You tell me.
Deputy Lunsford then spun out of the way to avoid being run over by Brown's vehicle.
You can see it. What's Mr. Brown doing? He's trying to drive over as an officer. That would mean he would drive straight or at least turn his wheel towards the officer. What's the tire doing? Looks to me like he's trying to avoid the officer. Unfortunately, the officer didn't have that much concern about Mr. Brown's life at all. In fact, none of them did. None of them do.
One shot entered the passenger window and struck Brown in the shoulder. Several more entered the rear passenger side door and window. Brown's vehicle then accelerated across the vacant lot next to 421 Perry Street, and 5 additional shots entered the rear windshield and trunk of Brown's vehicle. At this moment, Brown was driving directly at Investigator Johnson, who was positioned on Roanoke Avenue in an unmarked white van. Lieutenant Judd was positioned on the corner of Roanoke and Perry in an unmarked white Crown Victoria. Brown's car narrowly missed striking the van operated by Investigator Johnson, who accelerated to avoid the collision.
So what he's saying is he had other officers who could have just drove their cars up and blocked Mr. Brown in. But instead of doing that, they preferred to shoot 20 shots into the vehicle, shooting a man in the back of the head. Yeah, we've got other ways to stop him, like cars. We could have drove in and blocked him in, but we're not going to do that. We'll just shoot as many bullets as possible into his vehicle.
Brown's vehicle crossed Roanoke Avenue and struck a tree in the residence on Roanoke Avenue and came to rest. The Pasquotank County team gave chase, removed Brown from the driver's seat, and life-saving efforts were immediately begun.
Okay, so one of the things that's very clear here is that Mr. Womble, District Attorney Womble here, has no interest in trying any of these officers for anything that they've done. In fact, it's quite the opposite. He wants to exonerate them. He does not want to hold them accountable. And he feels that, just like many officers do, that if you do not listen to them, they have a right to take your life. Whether you are armed or unarmed, driving a vehicle or walking. You could be walking, running, it doesn't matter. How many times have we seen men running from cops, black men shot in the back by cops? Too many to count. This is the same thing. Mr. Brown wasn't trying to hurt these officers. He was trying to get away, maybe because he was scared he'd die, and he was right. Obviously, he was right. Of course, there will always be morons who don't understand that the inherent fear of cops that is present in most people. Well, most people that aren't them. Well, no, cops won't hesitate to shoot us. Hence, people run. It's flight or fight. Some people, flight. That's what this was, a flight, which ended in a hurl of bullets. These officers, none of them are going to be indicted, but they're not going to be fired either. But for some reason, they're going to be retrained. So I'm trying to understand what they did wrong then if they need to be retrained, but what they did was not wrong enough that they need to be charged. Why do you need to retrain the officers who did the right thing, who acted according to policy? Cops operate with impunity, they have immunity, and we get to die for it.
Most news shows are suspect. They don't focus on Black issues, and when they do, it's all fluff. How does that help your life? How does that help your family? How does that help the culture? They don't. The Tim Black Show is different. Tim Black gives you news for people who can't stand the news. Real, authentic, researched, entertaining, on point. Don't let nobody take your cornbread. Visit www.timblacktv.com today. Get Black breaking news, politics, culture from someone you can trust. TimBlackTV.com. Join us today.